A very warm welcome to the G regional stakeholder seminar this evening. My name is Lisa Grant. I'm heading up the G activities in the Americas. And I'm very excited to welcome you to the very first in-person Americas stakeholder event this afternoon. We did these kind of events in previous years, all online as a webinar, but today I'm really delighted to see you all here in one room and online. So we have a hybrid event, what made us really nervous, but I hope it all works. But some instruction for especially some housekeeping for those joining online. Very welcome. I hope you can all hear us here in the room. If you have any questions, you unfortunately are muted or not visible to us to see, but we really would like to welcome you to engage in the seminar. So please post your questions in the Q&A online, and we will put the questions to the moderator in the two panels we're having today. If you can't answer your questions, also still please ask questions, because we are very happy to follow up with you afterwards. And please notice this seminar is recorded. Well, again, very warm welcome and delighted to be able to actually do this in person. And that's thanks to Oceanic, who host us at their safety summit. And that's why I would like to invite Katie to give a little bit a welcome as well.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you everybody for being here. We're very grateful for our continued partnership with the G+ and all the organizations involved and all of our members that overlap. This is our 4th year of the O&M Summit, so we've had 4 years running, twice in New Orleans, once in Virginia Beach, and now up here in the Northeast where we're all doing O&M. So very glad to have everybody here. If you're not registered for tomorrow's conference and you would like to get registered, you can see a member of our staff, and we can help you out with that. There's still plenty of time, plenty of room in the program. And then on that note too, it's an interesting time for our industry, and the network is here to support everybody in any way that we can. So please reach out to any member of Oceanic staff if there's anything we can do to help you out. So that's all I have. I'm excited for this session. I think I'll pass things over to Rob to get us started. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be up here visiting with you all. My name is Rob Hall. I sit as the head of safety, security, sustainability for Equinor's renewable programs in the U.S., based out of Stamford, Connecticut. Currently, standing here representing as the chair for the G+ U.S. Focal Group. And big component here of being with y'all is to provide a little awareness. Some may not be familiar in just what the G+ is and what we help to deliver and work collectively on to support the offshore wind industry. Hope to leave you with a little insight behind that, and we'll gain that as we go through some panel discussions with some of the volunteers to speak with you all and visit. Moving forward though, just to give a little background to what is the G+. I think I'm going backwards here. So just, you can see on the screen, I won't bore you by reading through just a quick look at what the G+ does, a glance at it. But really at the heart of it, what makes G+ an effective organization, helps us deliver specifically on the topic of safety in the offshore wind industry, is its members. The collectiveness of bringing together operators, OEMs, developers, supporting suppliers, bringing these voices together to talk about something extremely important to all of us, and that's safety, helping to protect and honor our biggest asset out in these projects, the people that are out there supporting us. Making up these partnerships, we see a quick look at the global enrollment within the G+. It is the world's only global offshore wind focused safety industry, proud to be a member and supporting it. Here we see broken up into 2 tier levels. We have full members involved in the G+, and we have associate members. A lot of familiar names I mentioned to everybody in the room, some of you, your own companies hopefully represented up on this screen. And then just taking a little bit of a drill down, these are the members that constitute the U.S. Focal Group more specifically. Number of developers again, focus at the top, some additional partners we have at the member level. But really, when it comes to the engagement that occurs, it's all equal. Everybody come together, work with one another, help answering questions, support each other on the topics of safety and the delivering on safety offshore. So important that I kind of recognize those deliverables that help steer us within the G+, and here you'll see what we often refer to as our 4 pillars. These are the focus areas that G+ tries to put energy and initiatives in to deliver on programs, tools that can be openly used by anybody supporting this industry. In going through them, there's a lot of good work that goes into incident data and reporting. A lot that helps us benchmark amongst one another, identify those improvement areas where we can put our energy to help drive performance. Good practice guidelines, great documents put together collectively through input through the members. Those that are interested, actually out in the hallway, there's a table set up in the G+. You can scan some of the QR codes, gain access to these, go to the website, gain access, utilize them within your workforce, gain understanding of what we're trying to promote as best practices to help everybody deliver. There's Safe by Design programs, bring together industry partners, peers to help promote in this realm. And then very important is the learning from incidents. Nobody enjoys being reactive, but important that when we do have these incidents that occur out there, we find opportunities to work together to drive improvement, to try to drive prevention, to make the workplace a safer place for everybody engaging in this industry. So I hope that just gives you a very small flavor. We'll definitely be around for a while after this session. Glad to speak a little bit more, visit the table outside, go to the website, learn a little bit more if you're still gaining interest in what the G+ is, particularly here at the U.S. Focal Group. But with that, really looking forward to get into the panel sessions. And we kind of broke this up into 2 sessions. We'd like to do the first part, a little bit of a year in review. We'll invite some panelists up here shortly and just talk about what has occurred over the past year. And led us up to this very interesting start to a new year for the industry. And then the second half of the session, we want to bring a panel where we talk really about the collaboration effort, the ability to work together with one another, and where we see G+ providing that avenue for just that, for people coming in the industry and supporting one another. So I'm going to pause here with my part now and hand this mic over to Tom Cassidy, my co-chair here with the G+, and let him take over. Thanks, Tom. Switch out here.
Hi there. Thanks for coming today. Thanks to you for starting the session up. My name is Tom Cassidy. I work for Ocean Winds North America, the Development Owner Operator, office in Boston. We've got 3 leases in the US at various stages of development. And today we've got a panel of people who are the buckets of the road. These guys are doing it. They've got operational projects, and they're actually delivering clean energy projects in the US. We're going to talk about the last year, 2024, what was good, what was bad, what was ugly, and focus on actually working together, how we achieve success, even though we are possibly seen as competitors in the market. We actually work very closely together, with the G+, to learn from incidents, to improve, and to deliver safety for our workforce and communities that we support. So, here's a grab some. Let's choose now.
We can make it. Testing.
Yeah, thanks guys. If you'd like to introduce yourselves one at a time and tell us about highlights of your projects and kind of what things you're proud of this year, focusing on, some of the achievements that you've had in 2024 because in May.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. My name is Jeff Neal. I'm the HSC Director for Vineyard Wind and Vineyard Offshore. Been with the project for about a little over 5 years now. Yeah, 2024 was definitely a challenging one for our project, right when we started producing power. You know, we actually had, I'm sure everyone's heard about the blade failure incident we had actually offshore. With that, you know, it was probably a pretty, you know, low part of the project, but I think as far as a highlight, I can say one of the things I'm proud of on the project is that during that very difficult time of publicity, there was a significant coming together of all hands on deck type of attitude. When you have a situation as bad as that, the last thing you want to do is make it worse. We were able to perform the recovery operations on shore on the beaches, offshore, with mobilizing a significant amount of people. Last minute, everyone wants to get it fixed. There's always that chance of something really going wrong. We were able to do that without, you know, such a horrible accident. There was no serious injuries. It's what we really wanted to do, especially during the recovery operations. We mobilized, you know, hundreds of people offshore and on to recover a lot of debris. I mean, Jay Souza helped out. We activated our incident command system and incident command post, incident management team, a lot of interagency support and oversight between Bessie and the Coast Guard. And, you know, I think one of the highlights is that they didn't have to take over the operation. You know, the last thing you want is the Coast Guard to come in and say, you guys aren't doing a good enough job. We're gonna take over this incident command. And with that, all of us able to work together to perform the recovery efforts safely. They're still somewhat ongoing, but I think that was one of the real highlights for me. In a difficult situation, we were able to perform admirably and get everyone together and cooperate.
Hi, my name is Juan Carlos Moreno. I work with Siemens Gamesa. I'm currently involved in the development of the CBOW project, or Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind. Some of the achievements we have currently within the project is working in the development of the risk assessments for the operational portion of the pre-assembly. We are incorporating the learnings from other projects and different technologies, and this is where we value a lot of the G+ information, because help us integrate or improve our risk assessments as we move along.
Olivia, can you turn the volume down a little bit? We'll get that going. Will Kenyon, QHSC Director, now is the lofty title, responsible for the offshore construction and development of South Fork Wind, Revolution Wind, and Sunrise Wind. Future looking at Starboard Wind and Long Island Wind and all the features of this Area 500 as well. I think to somewhat want to speak to the work that's occurred at the New England State Pier with the Siemens teams and the lay down has been, there's no way really to tell you how hard it was to start to see how well it's going now. We had multiple union sets, people that worked in the area. We had agreements that failed, security problems, new contractors, and it's been a relatively incident-free idea with a lot of great collaboration. So the work that Siemens has done so far has been incredible. And I think it really is our contractors working together to support a new idea of being open to the challenges and changes of foreign requirements and different needs and just a bit more impactful safety. So other things that I'm really excited about and that had occurred this year is we transitioned our South Fork Wind construction to operations. It's America's first operating offshore wind farm. Us, we beat everyone to it. We'll finish Revolution first. We're working through Revolution. We've got multiple substations being installed. We're starting Sunrise Wind at Fort Cable. We've got a lot of things that are really positive offshore wind ideas. We've adapted and adopted the EverSource onshore substations and learned a lot about American installation of power management systems. And then we're running the very first American SOB, Eco Edison, which will be duplicated by multiple other developers in this room, which is wonderful. So there's a lot to be really proud of in this industry. And I'm really excited to be able to, you know, like to what Rob was saying, spend some time in the room with my development counterparts and talk about how we can grow the industry and be better moving forward. So those are just really exciting things that occurred, and things I'm really happy to see.
Yes, thank you. For me, this is really about politics. And what's been great for me is to see how yourselves are facing massive challenges. This is very difficult. You know, it's very difficult. You meet the challenges head on and achieve success. And that's what we do to be for. This isn't possible. We can do it, can be done, and do it safely, do it continual improvements, and try and move forward. So, great job. As an active member of the Plus Group, where do you see the group being brings the most value, and what might you shall we continue to support active safety culture?
Yes, I think yes.
Yeah.
I think where the people brings value is give us that opportunity to work amongst different developers, see their point of view, and in the case of Siemens Gamesa as a tool and provider, good perspective of what the developer is looking for, and also give us perspective of how we need to adapt the business or the offshore business into America. So having this focus group, having the communications and work together with the developers and work together with the other participants in the industry brings value to us in order to develop a better product and making sure that safety is the first priority when we are developing. Learn from NB and all the projects related to that. The adaptability and collaboration that we need to work together in order to develop a better project. And I think that for me was valuable. I started, when I started in the offshore side of business, one of my first travels was to with Ron, that is the safety manager there. And for me it was a valuable lesson, see the openness between the developer and the program provider and working together to deliver a safety product.
Following on that, what activities we should focus on in the future to how we can improve our relationship between the developer and the OEM, and how to manage this, to understand each other? Because we've got different demands, different requirements sometimes, but actually focus on the same thing. So do you think we work close together, that's something we can possibly do?
Yes, I think this forum or the inflows as a forum is perfect for that, because it brings you the openness in order for me to be open and honest with my developers, and the developers can give me their point of view. And I think for me it's invaluable because we understand each other and that we have a common goal. It means making sure that when we develop a product or when we develop a product together, the project is safe to be delivered, and we have the focus of having people be safe from the conceptual design to the production of the product.
So I think to what Juan was saying about the design to execution, Siemens, SGRE, and Orsted have operated as partners for a long time, and I think I see that connection with G+ as well. There's a partnership to some of the tools that G+ is providing on design risk or work at height expectations. Those things are all tools that we use within our teams to say, hey, this is the minimum. This is, yes, it's not regulation, it's not a requirement, but this is the minimum we're going to set. And I think it allows for us to speak across developer and contractors and say, so we're comfortable that it's been risk assessed and that this is where we're happy to exist in risk management. And I think that's where we see G+ growing with the American workforce expanding. To some of the conversation we were talking about with how OSHA really impacts our onshore substations and how there's these two challenges with US Coast Guard requirements or BSEE's requirements for safety management system reviews, and how all of these kind of fit together, and that the G+ of the EU UK can develop into a region specific that I think in the end helps us as a team member or a team to manage risk. And I think that's the best part of this is the data set that you can adapt your work sets to and say, hey, what's everyone else doing? It's a library of info on saying how are all developers and all the tier 1 contractors operating, and let's us as a region say, here's the bar. This is what we're going to do. This is success. Sorry.
Yeah, Most of our outreach to strategy to contractors around the G Plus and the message that we're trying to get about our best practice studies, our criteria for G Plus. Do you think that's effectively really down to contractors and strategy? So we're working on
I think there's still room to grow in that area. I think one of the good things about, engaging with contractors, developers, all in the same room, is that we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. I've always kind of said there's no competitive advantage when it comes to seeing we want the same thing. I think setting that expectations, and we have seen, a lot of improvement from the start of the leasing agreement. One, the focus on safety of the contract, especially more with the local contract. We've got some local contract requirements for a lot of these projects, to where some of those, smaller local contractors aren't used to the big corporate HSE kind of oversight, where they come along. And I think participating in G Plus is, I guess, we're solely focused on safety aspects. The expectations are kind of set and laid out, so you understand where they're coming from, and you may do some hand-holding with the attitude, but I think we see a lot of really good results just based on the engagement from organizations like G Plus, and then obviously on site as well. But there's always room to grow. I think there's more on the manufacturing side, when able to kind of implement some things and try to go stronger in that area. Something that tends to be overlooked, just in construction a lot of times and operations. I think kind of getting down to the right from the manufacturing base, I think on out, I think is going to be an area to improve that we can.
I think one of the things I would like to see really make it work well is, if I draw a parallel, AWO and the cost of care program, or the U.S. Coast Guard, there's a real time where they'll start to say, that's your method for small boat operation. American water operators will take care of you. Here's a great program, and it turned into things like Subchapter F and other really great programs we have with this now. I'd love to see the U.S. Coast Guard or Bessie say, hey, G Plus is the answer. And I think that would be the future of G Plus, is seeing, getting a regulator or ACP or the big lobbyists to say, do you want your bar set, go to G Plus. That's the real future here, is getting people to think for not just developers, not just contractors, but somebody who's in a place of power to regulate, say, the best option there.
I think it's also an opportunity for companies that are starting to use the populations of the Plus for being ground settle and starting point to say, okay, I want to get into the offshore business. This is my starting point. This is what I need to know, what I need to achieve in order to get my foot in the door and get into the business. And I think that's great, having that name, and also the opportunity to create our safety program because of the discussions that we have between developers, providers, and other associations as well, like the ACP and other associations.
Some key points there about how the G Plus can interact with other stakeholders. We're here for the strategy, which is great, and we're working close to them. And Bessie as well, we have a good relationship. And I think you and others in the organisation are well respected by Bessie. On that note, what are your hopes, dreams for 2005? And what we can do to have success this year? And you mentioned fabrication there. I think the fabrication sector, steel work, is quite critical in the future. And a lot of research on the area. So what do you think we should be focusing ourselves on?
I think for our particular project right now, is we've gone back to full-on construction. But we've got a lot of additional work to do in light of the blade failure incident, where there's almost separate campaigns for blade removal, blade replacement. So for us, it's almost like you're running a separate project, to where we're going to, for us, I say it's important to look at it as a completely separate project itself, to where you have a dedicated, let's say, an agency manager, agency site personnel, and treat it like kicking off a brand new project from an agency oversight review process, as ID meetings, things like that. So I think for us, I look forward to it. I know it's going to be challenging. We're going to have a much larger vessel spread. A lot of things we're planning on doing is that unplanned work that we were anticipating, and usually kind of tends to lead after incidents. So outside the ordinary to sit back with you and really follow through on your management systems, make sure you're doing the same things you would do as if you're kicking off just the start of a brand new project. It's one of the highlights I'm looking for, and I'm actually excited about. Challenging, yes, but I think it gives us good opportunities to learn. We've had a lot of lessons learned this year from construction, starting some operations, and then obviously things happening in the south. But taking that knowledge, because it's going to happen again at some point. You're going to have incidents where you're not anticipating, but you're going to have to react and respond. And you're going to share that information across other developers. That I think it's going to, being able to call up Will or Jay or anybody and say, hey, you see this before. I think it's team collaboration really makes it a lot easier. That's one of the things I look forward to is that the industry continues to grow, at least in the construction side for the permanent project right now. So.
I think, you see my thunder, I think collaboration was what I was going for, and I think that's my wish list, because we need to have a lot of collaboration between developers and also with contractors. For instance, for civil project, we are just engaging the contractor for the assembly and working with them and doing your outcome and handle, like you were saying, is for me vital, because it's important that they learn the management system from our client, but also they learn the management system. And we are rich on management systems from what they have to bring to the table. They have a lot of expertise to, they have a lot of knowledge that they will bring to the table that will enhance the project. And I think that as long as all parties work together towards delivering and considering safety as the main goal of the project, I think we will be okay. That's what we manage.
So one seat at 108 more turbines, or 76, but we've already solved X, right? How many more do you have to do for us? And there, to think about New London, we have to operate those active approach, right? So 2 tons in the barge have to move from New London State Pier out to the Leeds area. I appreciate it over those as well as it has been, because I think there's so much work ahead of us. It's South went great. Revolution when we started, there's just so much more for Sunrise. Right? I'm excited. Big piece of the kit that the community's created for offshore winds. That's a big move for us. The first wind turbine installation vessel that's available. I think I'm excited to see Revolution finish what we're doing. I'm excited to see and really looking forward to an industry started, right? I mean, it sounds on 12 turbines, one substation. Yes, it's not a question here about that. But the reality is, we were talking about gigawatts of power that we're installing and making available in a very tough political climate. I think those are big wins for all of us. I think it's a big win for Rhode Island and the South Coast, where industry hasn't been in for years. And as a kid who went to high school on Cape, to see industry get born and work through Cape Islands, those are big things that are going to create a great future for my children and those two. So I really want to see 25 be successful regardless of how it started. And I think we should focus on the success being the installation of turbines and the handling of operations, which we absolutely understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Obviously, it's not the greatest time for the industry, in the political environment. I think we have an opportunity that I'm excited about to, finish up our project to show the benefits of the actual industry, that we can do this safely, we can do this without harming the environment, to really show that, the value to the U.S. I think we've got a great opportunity to do that. So we got to take it seriously. I think that's a big goal. So we got to take the good stuff out of the trouble time right now. We've got a good opportunity. We can just set back, but it's an opportunity to perform well and well work.
And to be fair, we're not even including the Dominion project. That's a massive idea. They've got TVs set up on docks. They've got people working. There's installation going wild on there. So we've got some really big accomplished for people who are interested in the growth of the industry and the investment in the teams. And I think that's a positive here that I'd like to say 2025 isn't the end of the wind in America. It's the beginning of the wind in America. It's saw slogan sooner. But yeah, I think it's a really neat time for us, even though there is some negatives.
Yeah, people are missions to find. I think for me, it's seeing these projects are nice. You see the benefits to communities, benefits to supply chain, the good high quality jobs, and all the rest of it kind of showing the benefits of the industry. Not always just by the legislature, but what was to be taken into that. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so one thing this year we learned, something that's straightforward, we learned that in the benefit for I'll say one thing this year is I've learned, as you here, is the importance of working with our technology and contractors. And understanding that we may not have every single piece of paper we're looking for, we may not have everything we require, but we can help you to develop that. And raise them up as time we need to work together. And I think that's important when we're working with small contractors, working with small, best workers, and people who really benefit from the partnership. As shows some time and as resources, we can improve them and create more market for the industry. I think that's nice and quite important. I spent a lot of time with small contractors, what we're doing is to kind of that a little bit and support them, and they're providing great service to us now. So I enjoy that.
I think one of the things I've learned this year, something I've always known, but as far as engagement, I mean, we had, I think, month of December, we had over 800 people working offshore across the project, and that continual engagement, whether it's on a bi-weekly or monthly, process with a contractors agency, and we've got Chris here from Dene, having those meetings and engaging with the workforce. I think earlier on we saw, you have those people, we weren't really staffed with engagement, so you've got, one agency rep on a vessel, but you've got, 10 crews going on 10 different locations. It's next to impossible to check on everybody, just not logistically, feasible. So I think those engagements with the workforce, almost bi-weekly, outside of their normal safety briefing, people lost thought, really helped us when we upped our staffing. We really started to see improvements in the trends actually going more in the right direction. We had middle of the year, we had a little bit of a, we started creeping up in our incident rates. We jumped on it, worked with all of our contractors who were more on board, put together a safety improvement plan, and we're able to, in the last 4 months of the year, have no recorded incidents. So I think it takes the cooperation and the engagement, and again, not being caught, but just be approached more from a safety perspective, from the supervisors offshore to the dedicated agency personnel. Something we've changed our contracts going forward to really incorporate more agency oversight and support offshore.
I would like that to one of the stakeholders to listen more, pay more attention on. Because the people doing the work on a daily basis have to say, who are actually working with them. Many lessons or many things or many, we have not many applications to our volunteer programs based on the information that comes from the people in the field. We have, for instance, we place hand garment for better ones, or we have enhanced our first response capabilities in terms of first aid kits in the vessels. And we have incorporated those learnings to our ongoing processes. And I think that's very rich for the safety perspective, because you ensure that you are preventing rather than corrective. And I think that's invaluable, because for one end, the people who feel that you are listening to them and you are putting actions behind them. And for the other end, you gain because you are avoiding incidents for taking place. So you are ensuring basically that everyone goes on the same way. That's a safety person, that's kind of the point. We walk ourselves out of the job.
So I really was impressed by and learned a lot from the requirements of the task this year. We had ocean wind was shuttered in 2024, had to had a bunch of people go. A lot of them came back to work for us in these spaces, which is great, but we've had to adapt how we interact with not only our contractors, but also our regulators. And I think I learned that even though Orsted comes in as, it's all the first option, which is providing 1,200 plus others, we still have to learn every year on how we interact with our different requirements. And our stakeholders have a requirement set, our contractors have a requirement set, our regulators have a requirement set. And as we work with stakeholders, we need to adapt to their requirements. I think some of what Jeff spoke to earlier about using the blade, our regulator had to figure out how to respond. All of us has to mitigate their risk. And we had to adapt to a requirement that maybe doesn't make sense to us, in the sense that it's almost a response idea that we're losing back to us and what we're conversation. But I think those things we had to adapt to. And I learned that even the brightest minds in offshore winds, and the ones that have done it across all from APAC to Australia to everywhere else, right? They still don't know the answers. And I think that's maybe something to take while the contractors in the room, is that adaptation and understanding that we don't have the answers, you may have the answers, you may not have the answers, we may have the answers, that we have to adapt to each other and support the growth of whatever the answers are. I mentioned that we took over their source onshore construction. We had to adapt to two very different forms of power movement. We have the AC substation and the DC substation, one in New York, one in Rhode Island. Two different contracting sites. They had to adapt to one Eversource and how they manage both and work through that. And I think everyone expected everyone to have the right answers. Right? That's what the government should take from this year, is that adaptation is important. And if we don't do it well, we won't succeed.
Is there no audience, any questions? Let's take.
Thank you. So, well, you touched on this just there. So we talk a lot about supply chain management, how we sort of develop our own supply chain, subcontractors. Is there any efforts being made to educate? Because, like you said, we have regulators as well. We have permitting authorities. Are there any measures in place to sort of establish, implement, and develop what reasonable standards are, i.e., what code looks like? Because, as you said, sometimes people that we report these things to aren't quite clear of what it is they're looking for. So, what would you propose the solution could be for that? Because the industry is still quite new within the environment.
Yeah, I think the adaptation stage, right? We have to look at what our stakeholders want and say, here's what we can offer and meet in the middle. Because there isn't a regulator that understands what we're doing specifically. They mean well and they want to help, but there's a lot of things that they're asking questions about because they don't know. And it's the best part of looking at Jeff and I are doing is growing with Jeff Stewart and Jonathan Fraser and helping them understand where we are, and then helping us understand where they are. So I think in the U.S., we generally have a response to a regulator to say, right, they're telling us to do it. That's a really good reaction for the most part, but we also need to understand that this is a new industry for them. You know, OSHA's been doing civil construction for decades. They tell you this is how it's going to go on the civil construction site, they're pretty small. But Bessie has spent a lot of time in the oil and gas industry, and they're requiring us to have oil spill response plans. We have 600 total vegetable oil gallons on our substations, right? Maybe not the same response, but what they're doing fits. So we have to meet in the middle. And I think that's the tact with developers. It's the tact with all of us. I'm sure, whether it's Jeff or Tom or any of the developers, if you were to bring an idea to say, this is where I'm at, this is what I think I can do, here's the spirit of what I'm trying to do, I've missed X, Y, and Z, but we do A, B, and C. Let's meet in the middle. I think that's where we struggle. A lot of our contractors come to us with, I can't do it. I haven't done it. And try. I mean, it's all about trying. It's all about trying to figure out. And we can give you answers. I think we can figure something out, but I think you're asking for a big bucket for us to jump in and just do all these things for us, because you know that's crazy. Because because we're gonna ask for them. I would implore all of you to say, here's where I can go, here's where requirements say, here's what I can do specifically, well, just assess, I mean, because we all think we're happy to have that conversation.
You had that as well, when you set up your employee registry requirements from the get-go, and intended things, but I think it is that communication, whether it's an OEM or a vessel supplier, contractor to come back and say, here, we don't normally do this. We can just say, hey, well, this is actually a regulatory requirement, you have to do it, or we normally do it this way. You can find that common ground, you do that risk assessment, you may have a better idea than us. And I think that's huge. I've learned a lot. I think we talked about going back and talking to people that actually perform the work. You may have the greatest idea on paper when we try to put it into action, but no human being could possibly do that. It looks great on paper, but someone's actually got to physically perform the work or a piece of equipment. So that's the feedback you get.
Contracts have availability for variances, and it's not just a sheer, hey, we're just not doing that. Like, there's room to work with you, and I think that's where we have been asking and hoping our contractors develop into that creative mindset sometimes and say, let's figure it out together. Because you guys are the pros, like you know how to install turbines and lay cables. We're just supposed to think we have the best design for it.
I think, Chris, you have to talk about that. I mean, there are certain things we can't, we talk about the environmental permitting and compliance stuff. There's certain things that are so above and beyond what's normal, but it's a perfect condition for us to where you say, hey, we don't normally do this. Well, we understand that, but you have to here. This is it's. We don't even do it either, but there's certain things that we have no wiggle room on. There's a lot of other stuff. You may have a better way of doing it than we have designed or put in place.
I think that's a good point to you management try to intelligent customer as the problem. And we rely heavily on contractors, the subject matter expert. So you can leave us as well, not all answers. We know the design. We don't have this solution team. You might consider that. And regarding the SE, unfortunately, we need to advance it. They do engage us quite a lot. We do a lot of engagement about performance-based regulations. There's nothing we put down, CFRs, regulations. A lot of our stuff is our current requirements. There's extra random things pop up that sometimes aren't always total sense and doing requiring. And but as a supply chain, as contractors, major part of doing this. We do heavily rely on you to provide the means and methods, and we should listen to that as well. I've done this 1,000 times. We've got the resources to manage that aspect of it. So, but when it comes to data, there's some stuff going background. SE will be done a few things like work with SCP to get ready to practice for city management systems. They're involved in that, and quite a lot of people from the supply chain involved in that as well. So there is some kind of guidelines coming out about what city management looks like for our focus on order management. So there is some stuff in the background going on. And we plan basically to get involved in that and just work on.
Hi, Tim Axel, Civil Green Logistics. My question is for Jeff. Can you take us into the mindset of the regulator when they shut you down for months? I just didn't quite understand that with the blade falling off, that they would need that much time to evaluate and do an assessment. At least they didn't shut the entire industry down. I guess you could say that. But I'm just trying to think, what was the logic there on the regulator? And also, just the second part to the question, was this part of your what-if analysis in your contingency planning with a blade failure like this? Thank you.
So to answer your second question first, a blade failure wasn't something that we had, anticipated. To Will's point, as part of our power rules, we have to supply a oil spill response plan, right? So we activated that. It wasn't really oil. But you think a lot of the equipment and a lot of the contractors mobilized in response to that. You're setting up ocean boom, that doesn't really do anything for fiberglass or, high density foam. So I think, thanks to us, a lot of the other developers had to incorporate and SE put out the debris recovery plans now, part of all There's a lot of interesting lessons learned. There's a lot of equipment that we could use, think of like surface water skimmers and netting. A lot of our commercial fishermen that we utilize on the project could implement and want to use. Problem is, legally, they can't do that, because any type of netting has to be go through NOAA for approval as part of permitting for fishing. So we really had people kind of hand-picking, pieces of foam this big with the size of vessels, right? So it wasn't something that was anticipated, and there was definitely a lesson learned. Now you have a debris recovery plan as opposed to solely just a oil spill response plan. And as far as your first question, it's tough to get to the head of the regulator, but I think in this particular case, I think they erred on the side of caution, which I can't blame them for. I think, they did, you look at the history, there were a couple blade failures over in Colorado Bay. So we start to say, hey, do we have, I can say I would probably take the same investigation, process as well. Until we know exactly what the issue is, do we have a serial defect in all these blades? Turn it back on. What happens? I think a lot of it was waiting on the third party, root cause analysis, supplier root cause analysis to get an idea and establish some corrective actions to make sure you've got a sustainable path forward to ensure that, we're doing what we need to do to prevent this from happening again. And so whether, hey, is it, again, a design defect? Did something happen during operations? Did something happen during transport? Did something happen, during installation that we've been doing right along? Why I can't really fault them for saying, here, we need to figure this out first before we start saying, go ahead, full blast. They did give us a little leeway. We were able to start, installing what we call hammerheads, which is towers and the cells, and then starting the, investigation and inspecting each set of blades before we sent offshore to be installed, which is what the process is now. And that's essentially what we did. I can't really blame for it. You look at it from a political publicity, it was a nightmare, right? And I think I agree with I would want to start this kind of going full steam ahead before we knew exactly what the issue was. It just didn't make sense to be in the same spot. Months later, you just didn't know. So I wouldn't have started installing either. I mean, that's what I told our CEO as well. Until we know exactly what went wrong, it doesn't make sense to. We're just going to shoot ourselves in the foot here. Let's find out what the issue is. Let's get it corrected. Let's move forward after that.
And it's quite a process as well. So a new operator cop, CDA, it's not, not scrutiny involved is high.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on regulators as well. I mean, this was a big push of the previous administration too, right? So now you can have everyone point and say, look, here, see what happened. We know it's a rarity, but I can't necessarily fault them for giving me more work or anything like that, but they did the right thing from a health and safety investigation process.
Why can you comment this on as part of the design process of blades, we do analysis of this, blade failure, blade through. So design is to various models of analysis and then that testing protocol. And we're talking about you end up being a manufacturing quality defect.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue.
Adrian Cadena with Optimal Rope Access. So my question is for G Plus. Obviously, our RADA and SCRAT standards, which are niche service lines that are now going to be opened up with offshore wind, how do we see that getting incorporated into what G Plus is doing now? So that we know that people are utilizing SCRAT and RADA safe work practices for working in height, so that it's spread across the whole service lines.
As a RATA, we require RATA offshore access training for people working on sites. It's a very good standard, very high standard training and competence, and that's what we follow. So you come to one of our sites, you do access, they will access the rest.
You're just doing operations stuff, right? So in construction, we don't use those, but that's because we take them about what is the situation, use tools like AXA for test systems and other things to get up and down, and use other tools for that. But I think as we look at operations, those are things that the industry is using, and I think those are things that we might see more ability in the US, but right now we have not really break in for it. Maybe that's something we see as an operational requirement for SQE as we look at, Southwesters. From a developer standpoint, operator standpoint, those are parts of the future risk mitigation for work sets. And work sets have water in ways to remove people from doing that because people out there don't feel risk. So there's a lot of potential to remove that. Even need is the one for us to say use things like drones or other ideas to install and support ways that different ideas. But yeah, I think all those tools are updated. I know that's something that our office talks about is how do you manage risk with different educations and tool sets. But it's not off the table for us. It's just something that is one part of our own.
Actually used quite a bit of road course the previous year. And I think one of the things that took so long was to get us that up was inspecting every single lake we had offshore. Make sure that they were in good condition, or if they did need repair, or if they need replaced. One of the things as part of our requirements, at least a lot of times it goes out with contractors who actually are basically hiring the road access technicians, is that they do meet an accreditation, whether it's aeronautic, stuff like that. It's not. So it's something we would check during the, let's say the hazard IDs, or when we start doing annual reports a year. These aren't just people, coming out of the mountains, mountain climbers. They've got some sort of, professional certification and training, stuff like that. So it's something we require, I think, as an industry. Pretty standard. It's not out of the ordinary, but obviously we don't like to use. We could use something by a drone or by something like. We don't like to use commercial divers unless it's the last resort. We can use ROV, same thing. But if we do require it, which definitely more on the operations side, we do see more and more of that. We personally require that stuff.
Well, thanks guys for our time. Ask a question.
Thanks, Tom. Everybody on the panel, is this coming through? Yeah, so I appreciate everybody providing the time to sit up here. Hope you got some good information, some good reflections and insight from what was shared here up front. Moving into the second half of the panel, I could invite our panelists to come up and join me here. Excited a bit about this second one because of the makeup of this group. I hope this does a good job of capturing the uniqueness that G Plus does to bring in this totality of industry partners supporting offshore wind. We don't, here you see we have representatives from the operators themselves to industry peers to the supply chain partners out there. And what I'd like to do is be ready right here is talk about this topic of together we are stronger, very specifically about how working together helps lift up the performance delivery on safety. So getting some microphones on everybody and we'll get them up here to try to stress and all. Did we have any online questions from that? You want to miss out, right? Come on, man.
I'm short enough. I'm not.
All right.
Yes.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us up here in the front. If we could maybe just take an opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit, give a brief background to how you support the offshore wind industry, and move a little discussion from there. So, sorry, Nick.
Hey everybody, my name is Dustin Loretta. I am with the International Marine Contractors Association. So the International Marine Contractors Association is an industry group. It's based around vessels, it's about 800 members globally. Around the world, we support things like vessel operations, dynamic positioning, ROV operations, and really we produce industry guidance and safe practices for the offshore construction industry. We have our roots in oil and gas. That's where I started in offshore construction, building out guidance and best practices in offshore wind for well over 15 years. By background, I'm a local Massachusetts Maritime Academy graduate. I worked offshore for about 15 years, so I worked my way up in offshore construction for drilling, dynamic positioning, and defense work, and I found that indica practices in my world for things like vessel construction, vessel surveys, and dynamic positioning operations were really helpful, and it actually helped me reduce incidents and accidents offshore. We collaborate with G+, and we help find guidance and best practices as the industry evolves.
Hi. Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Robert Jackson. I'm the CS manager for the Offshore US. I'm also wind, basically from, I guess, also the back office corporate side. Everything from tenders to compliance to as well as writing policy and procedures. Also liaising everything from workers' comp to also dealing with our insurances and working on with agreements as well with the ones parties. Then also helping support our project teams also.
Hi. All right, I'm Brandy Barrington. I'm a senior program manager with the Center for Offshore Safety. I have been working in offshore energy for 25 years, which sounds crazy. I've been at the COS for 10 years this year. The Center for Offshore Safety is an industry trade association, and we focus on the development of good practices for offshore safety and implementation and auditing of safety environmental management systems. So we develop good practices like we published one last year for personal fatigue offshore and how to manage work shifts for personnel. Crane maintenance tracking is another good one, or how to write and implement procedures. And so yes, that is for oil and gas, because that's where offshore energy has been in the US for the last 100 years. But we believe that a lot of the work we do works just as well for offshore wind, since we're all playing in the same sandbox now. And we want to collaborate.
Hi everyone, my name is Jay Souza. Is this on? Yeah. Jay Souza with AutoGrid. I'm a local guy, proud to be born and raised in New Bedford, proud graduate of the Mass Maritime Academy. Relax. Proud to be working on the Vineyard 1 project. I'm the HSCP manager for the operations phase. So as soon as Jeff can get everything installed, finish execution, we'll hand over to us in operations. Looking forward to it.
So as mentioned at the start here, a very diverse group of supporters on this panel. And Randy kind of spoke to something about being, a historic career safety professional. I share that as well. And one of the things that I take a lot of pride in and enjoy about being a safety professional is understanding that safety crosses all work areas. All industries, the learnings and the way to approach safety fundamentally at root is the same. Understanding the risk in front of us and then how to develop mitigation plans to help address those. And as a result of kind of this transferability of safety, one of the great things about safety professionals involved in this craft is the ability to work together. Nobody's keeping that secret sauce hidden on how to deliver on safety. Everybody understands the more we're open, engage with others, speak to what we're doing and having success with, admit where we're having challenges, and seek help and support from others, the better we all are in delivering and meet that aspiration towards high delivery on safety. So in that realm, really did want to focus this session about that collaborative effort and just hearing from others, how you see that strength in collaboration and the importance of it. So, big broad question. I know we heard from the first panel, recognition of the value of it, but just like to take some time now. And Yuri, teed up with the mic ready to go. So why don't you jump right in?
Perfect example.
All right.
Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement is now in charge of safety for offshore wind. And they have been overseeing safety for offshore oil and gas. So for offshore oil and gas, we're required to use American Petroleum Institute's recommended practice 75. When SE said, well, you're going to need a management system for offshore wind, a group of people came together and took RP 75 and made a wind version of RP 75. They took the historic lessons learned from offshore oil and gas and invited all of the wind industry experts into the room and said, take this document and make it yours. And it was such a great, so I sat on that group. It was such a great example of G plus in the room, G plus members in the room, ACP owner operators that said, okay, here's this document that has been worked on for oil and gas. But the lessons in it, the blood that caused this document to be written, right? The blood spilled offshore that led to this. We can learn from that, and we'll add our own expertise to it to create RP75W, which was published June of last year, or July of last year. So I think it's such a great example of we don't have to say oil and gas is the bad guy, right? We can take those lessons learned. We don't have to learn them in blood the same way. But you do have your own expertise to apply to it that oil and gas doesn't know. So it's a great example.
Yeah, I think it's a great one to bring forward. I participate quite a bit as well in the focal group discussions around that. Myself, I've only been about 4 years. I say only 4 because there's others joined that have been in the industry even longer with offshore wind. But one of the things I was able to lean on was this industry group in G Plus, this global offshore wind safety entity that could really bring us experiences from developing projects in the UK and other parts of Europe and share those learnings of how we've seen issues raised in delivering safety and how we should implement those learnings. And that was brought to the table directly as we talk about this work to develop our RP75 to support offshore wind. So, great examples. Anybody else feel okay?
I mean, let's think about, what brought us here, right? I mean, we have this great forum with Oceanic, and we have organizations like G Plus that allows us to get together and actually openly share our thoughts. And more importantly, it opens up the communication channels, right? We're joining G Plus as a local member. I could just reach out to another developer and ask their secrets, right? But the key is that there are no secrets, especially when it comes to safety. I know Jeff said it before. So, it's extremely valuable to have an organization like the G Plus. I know this morning we had a whole group member meeting, extremely valuable. We're all able to just air out openly the challenges that we face. And without that, everyone's in silos and nothing's getting accomplished. So it's extremely refreshing to meet with other professionals who are doing the same thing on other projects with their own unique challenges. So there's a ton of value in doing things like this.
I think most others in G Plus would. I know I've always been very grateful to be able to pick up the phone or shoot out an email. Here's a dilemma I'm facing, and somebody in this group gives some insight on how they're doing, and the response has always been very gratifying that people not have been happy kind of come forward with their own insights.
I can just draw it. I think one thing around collaboration that's really interesting is because, not only are we coming from like a U.S. offshore industry that's basically well-facing and changing offshore wind, we're also operating in a very new region. I say very new, but like we've been doing this for a couple of years now. But I came up here probably 6 years ago and started working. It was very minimal experience in offshore operations and offshore construction. And the people that were here had shipped up. They shipped up from Mexico, and there were certain stakeholders in the room. And we had to work together. right? Some of the people from other industries came up there, G+ members. They're, UX, working with Inco, working with offshore boat operators. And one thing that comes to mind was, it was something very easy and not just expressed across the industry, but there was a different Coast Guard districts where we actually couldn't transfer fuel. Vessels were required fuel. There was no local flag state requirement, which is like an industry term for the Coast Guard. There was no precedence, there was no criteria. That happens all the time in the southern part of the U.S., but no one ever done it here. And this is not a hard challenge. We've literally done this thousands of times. I've literally done this dozens of times, hundreds of times myself. So we had to all come together to create a best practice of a base all around the world and all Mexico and set up here. And it was a way that we kind of came in, and of course we had to come up with something, but everyone had to come to the table. And I think time and time again, this is the best practice, and I think one of the other people up here said before, when it comes to safety, you always have to bring it forward. You always have to step up. You always have to stay back up. You get high. I think that's the most important thing. That's fundamentally comes from working on shore operations.
Then just bouncing on what they say around the collaboration piece, as well as standardization, and also basically teaching, I would say, development traits, but also along that talent development is where, as well as sharing the resources locally. As Dustin said, a lot of things are being done across the country. We're not necessarily getting done here, but also creating that standard around the industry and what we want it to be moving forward is always key. But one of the things is, also around that development around talent and everything that's out there. When it comes to the different industries, different jobs and scopes that are being for the projects also, and how they are able to actually be able to come in and be a huge resource for us, as well as the developers and tier 1 contractors and subcontractors that are also out there. Is huge, and that's something that I hope that we continue to, develop and grow. Where a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in the industry, but they see it as a viable conduit to a long-term solution.
Appreciate it, both of you. Work against so clearly a lot of recognition from everyone up here on the value of collaborating, working together. But maybe just pose a question about, talk about continuous improvement and looking for those opportunities. And maybe just ask you any thoughts around how you can take it to the next step, like how you can strengthen that collaboration, what role G+ can play to help in, whether it be a developer or a supplier, and kind of improve even further upon the value received.
So, as far as ways to improve, G+, for example, we have these work streams, we collaborate, we come up with an industry issue, people voice their concerns, and we get the right people together to discuss it and hopefully solve that problem. The developers, when we meet, there's plenty of problems to solve, and there's a lot of different categories we're working on continuous improvement. But that's only valuable if we hear from the supply chain, and we have representation from the supply chain and from the contractors. We expect to carry this out. So, we really need the voices to come forward. Everyone complain about the quirks in the industry, but if you're not bringing that through a formal channel and you're not making that constructive into a work stream, we've identified that it's likely not going to get solved. So that's the way I see as people, to be honest about the issues, and be open about them, and bring them through the right channels. I know a lot of the issues we face as a developer, the different working groups we have, and the best practice, that's helped a lot. And then what ends up happening is that best practice gets published, and you have the regulators saying, okay, here's what we expect you to do now. So, that's key. If you can realize that the work that we're doing now, if you allow your voice to be heard, then that will turn into best practice, and that best practice will turn into regulation. So we have the ability to write our future and to solve, the problems collectively. So I think that's key.
That's a great reflection. In fact, we're in this. We have challenges as an emerging industry, new to the U.S., but it brings a lot of opportunity, particularly in the sense that we want to kind of shape the industry versus Oil and gas has 50 years legacy that's already kind of cemented in its ways of working. You could face other challenges about changing ways of working. We have this opportunity right now to work collectively from all our various interests and understandings to kind of set a new bar, set a new direction that we think is a little more pragmatic in some areas, so it really help us to live. Thanks for that.
Bessie loves incorporating consensus-based standards, right? Oil and gas, hundreds of API standards are incorporated by regulation. They love it when the industry comes together and says, this is the right way to do it. So if you're starting at a really good spot where you as industry are getting together and creating these consensus-based documents, because Jeff Stewart is willing to listen, right? and Jonathan, like, they want what industry wants. And so if you come together and make those, they will listen and they will understand that this is what the experts have said, because they acknowledge that they're not the experts. And so it's, there's a precedent for them incorporating regulations that industry, or incorporating documents that industry has set into regulation.
Great point. Maybe it's even like a bit of a plug for everybody here. Get involved in what works, get involved, feedback to, if you are a supplier or a partner with the developers, get your good ideas forward, raise these so we can then bring those into this G Plus forum, have discussions about how we can feed these into these best practice guidance documents for generating and bring it to the table these discussions we have with Bessie or our primary regulators is proposed. These are really ways we get there that make sense to work in.
Nothing more to add to that other than, Jay is right on target with that, and that's one thing that I've always also been preaching, is it's better to set the standard now once it's all, then let the government know this will be used as the best practice. So that way things can be built around that versus being told from a regulator who doesn't fully understand the industry and what we do to its intricacies to give something we have to adhere to that may not be really realistic or possible as an issue overall.
I would just echo that and say that the regulators don't have the answer. They're looking towards us to do it, and we're really an industry that's we're in the leading edge of geography, sorry, something else, and the leading edge of technology. And these things have really been done, other places over time, and we're doing new things here, and then we're doing new things again at the next place, or the next geography. So this conversation essentially never ends. And then the further I've gotten into developing guidance and kind of looking on gaps and collaborating with G Plus, the more I realize that we have to work together, both from the developer perspective and the supply chain. And you, like stakeholders in the industry, need to provide a voice, or else you don't get a say. And you might not like what's said if you're not part of it. So I would encourage everybody to get involved. There is something that everyone's always so busy in their job, they all have day jobs. But in order to make sure that we come up with best practices, in order that we provide that input, we have to, because it's our lives at stake and our people in that space. So that collaboration, that voice, it's not only a request, it's mandatory. We have to do that. There's no other question about it.
Actually, I'm going to turn back to you, Dustin, because I'd like to do me a favor, coming and joining our panel here and speaking up about G Plus and what we're doing. But I'd like to also highlight in this vein of collaboration with Strong Together. Past spring, about a year ago, there was an effort done by IMCA to bring together industry partners, from G Plus that came supported. We had Coast Guard in the room. We had various ones to talk about response efforts. And would you like maybe just kind of show an example of where we come together?
Yeah, and that's something that G Plus and we work together. The API we all work together when we try to find the best practices in order to keep people safe. Last year, G Plus and Cody and I were working on what does it look like to make sure people are getting safely on and offshore. And we wanted to have a discussion based around helicopter services and make sure they were creating best practices. So we brought everybody together and we had a discussion around that, and we all provided input in order to increase it. And I think for that kind of discussion, again, we're in a new area, And, you know, we're gonna all need to get together in order to make sure that we're getting both the people who are operating vessels offshore and a lot of the, you know, the developers who are overseeing USMS. And it's just an example of like, it's just an example of how we kind of came together last year, and we framed it around the ICS, which is the framework that the Coast Guard uses for emergency response. And we collaborated on that in order to develop safe practices, and we actually have progress now. So those are things we'd like to continue to do. And really, if you see gaps, right, if you're out there and you're working or you're out, and you see those gaps, like, you know, please localize them to G+, like, localize them to anchor the industry, so that we can work on that. That's what we really ask for. We want that feedback to make sure we're working on the right safe practice.
Thanks, Justin. So, as you spoke and the others speak, and I realize and don't want to lose the connection that, you know, we are bringing, and I spoke a little already, bringing these learnings from kind of this global perspective, international marine, COS with instead of offshore safety has members and ABI from all over the world bringing these experiences to the U.S. where we're working, that may not working in the corner all to yourself. You know, very low reaching. You know, our organization is a span from outside the U.S. over ours. So it means we need to kind of turn a little attention to what this international experience is. G Plus is a global safety organization. The members themselves, those from outside within the support and work together. Any reflections to how that strength might be brought forward just from your own experiences? Okay.
I mean, I'm lucky enough to work for a global organization. We have lots of other projects in other regions. And when I started with the company, that was a huge advantage to me to be able to learn from the colleagues within our organization on other projects globally. But now, as we develop in the U.S., it sort of becomes apples and oranges. Right? The U.S. is its own beast, especially offshore in the U.S. So everyone's heard the term "build the airplane as we fly it." I know deal with marine safety has. It's sort of the way I look at it. Being expected to operate a wind farm in the U.S., you know, how am I expected to be a pilot on a plane that I've flown before? But the reality is no one in the U.S. has flown before. You know, we have Southport operational, so there's sort of a turning point now. Whereas before it was like this impossible challenge of, okay, we got these other projects, they've done the North Sea, they've done the Baltic, you know, we go visit these projects, we can get up tower, we can speak with the colleagues doing some of the very different environment here, as you all know, and very different supply chain in set of circumstances. So realizing that we have a different beast on our hands in the U.S., I think we've hit a turning point where now I can turn to Will at Orsted. I can say, hey, what's going on at Southport? How did you do this operation? Now I can go to Jeff Neal, who's, you know, in this extended interim phase of construction on the where we have groups that are doing operations maintenance, you know, right now, as you're still building the rest of them. So now I can turn to Jeff and say, hey, how do you manage this team? So it's like a turning point of being heavily reliant on our global partners in the beginning to now where we can sort of look within ourselves and work within our own groups to solve these problems, which is really refreshing. And it's nice when we hit that point. At least I feel like we hit that point. But it is valuable, again, to continue working with those partners. There's a ton of lessons learned out there. Now we're generating our own lessons learned, but we need to document them, we need to share them. We can't be in fear of releasing information. So I think that's
So I'm going to spin that just a little bit on its end. That if and when offshore wind moves into the Gulf of Mexico, you will be taking a lot of big companies that do global work, especially under an ISO framework, and you're going to now be working with contractors who don't know what ISO is. Because, you know, working in Gulf of Mexico, they work under API standards. And so you're going to have companies talking ISO at companies talking API, different language, different terminologies, different expectations, and there's going to need to be a lot of interfacing and discussion done with these contractors who are traditional offshore oil and gas contractors who don't know what those ISO terms and requirements are. So that's one of the, just an issue to consider as you bring these global companies down if and when we actually got some development in the Gulf.
Great challenge to kind of flag. Fortunately, when Dave comes to reach there, we're already engaging with plenty that are less familiar with ISO standards and how to work with them. It is a pragmatic one that raises the flag up as we all look at it the same.
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky and I've been able to work all around the world for many years. And when you work around the world, and you get to the framework, and my background is on vessels, so it's like a big state requirements. And what you come to realize is that there are these industry groups, G+ and NICI all together, because as you go around the world or in different regions, you run into these standards. Right? At the end of the day, the goal is to be safe and not to break your crane and not to sink the vessel. Right? That's the whole. And as an industry, as we come together, these safe practices are developed by the industry, for the industry, right? They're guidance, they're not regulatory documents, there's no police coming out if you don't do it, but you are taxed or you are in trouble if you break something or hurt somebody. And I would say in this moment where we're at, where there's a change, right? We don't have regulators up here, we don't know what the future holds. It's more of, it solidifies something that I already knew, which was like, these safe best practices are best done by us as the industry. Right? That's why we all come together and whatever, we experts, I'm not sure, we at least have some experience together. And we put these together and then we pass them along and those can follow. And again, I think this is the moment, right? Like we don't know. There was already gap that we all saw with small vessels, heights, beyond versus DNV versus vessels. But at the end of the day, we have to work together to make sure we're doing the best thing that we can do and using the safe practice. And that's why we have these coaching documents and these best practice guides documents. Probably have 75 pages.
So we've done a lot here to kind of talk, hope to get an idea of how G+ collaborates with ourselves and how it also reaches out and collaborates with those even not direct members of G+. How we kind of collaboration is key and we recognize that. So hope a little bit of learning about how G+ works internally, but then also externally just to be even broader partners here. Want to thank everybody up here that sat and shared their own reflections, but I would like to give some time, ask if you have any questions. Just one.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks to the panel for your time. Some good information. I'll just make a comment and then I have a question for you guys. I think as a group, us down south in Dominion and Vineyard and obviously the Northeast Project, we've been a little bit in a silo, so to speak. Maybe we missed some opportunities for collaboration earlier on in working with the G+. And there's some ones, I'll give you an example of areas where Bessie, for example, doesn't give a lot of guidance as how you're setting up like permanent little structures. So a lot of us are doing it based on experience in Europe or onshore experience. So my question is for you guys, how do you guys foresee that we can be a little bit more innovative in collaboration across, not just at G+ and conferences like this. Conferences like this are great, but it'd be good if we could get something in, especially in the digital age, where we could have more collaboration with a wider audience of workers at our various projects and also our contractors. How can we really go into, like, for example, I came out of the gas turbine world, and there was a lot of users conferences that had message boards, databases, things that anyone can have access to. So, like the question to you guys, okay, how can we innovate and get more engagement from our employees?
Great question. Just to repeat, because maybe join some the questions about innovation, how we can really, what are outlets we could consider to impregnate on this, what we could embrace to bring more support and engagement from the broader workforce so we do kind of maximize this learning improvement. Any thoughts from the panel here?
Well, Mike, I would just say, so, you know, this is what it is, you know, as you develop the CDOT project, and I think it's interesting for you to do the best operator and developer, or, you know, the best person. This, 5 years ago or 6 years ago here in Providence, we had our first G Plus and Indigo events where we started talking about guidance, and it's grown as the project's gotten real. We've gone from to construction, and we have offshore vessel operations. And last year, G Plus and Indigo came to Norfolk along with Roger from there, and we went down and we engaged with the supply chain. Of course, the connection was quite small because the industry is just coming. You know that in Norfolk is a big naval shipyard that a lot of your cargo, and your NASI standards from Norfolk Naval Shipyards, those suppliers are looking to be engaged. But I would say continue to engagement in these kinds of events, and then also join the members at G Plus and we would welcome the vessel operators to join our group because we are working along with our secretariat to develop these best practices and guidance. So it really is about involvement and getting people who are passionate about the industry and people who are experienced and become involved. And it's surprisingly hard, right? Everybody's busy. So if you can find a person and people to be engaged and want to do it, I would just say, welcome them to do it. And you get a voice at the table on development guidance.
I would say, at least myself as a safety professional, I try to look outside of the industry for collaboration, for ideas. I mean, I've been involved with Okido, for example, and traveled down south for that. There's other trade organizations that I stay involved in that are outside of offshore wind to try to stay up current with the safety industry in general, not just tailored to offshore wind. I know when I have worked, with the oil and gas sector, I saw overwhelming amount of opportunity to work with some of the entities that have nothing to do with offshore wind or are super interested in it, or just curious about how we do things, and vice versa. And that opened up a lot of opportunities for me to collaborate with some of those folks, sort of unofficially. So I know, I try to look outside of the industry for improvement. But I would say, the same thing for anyone, any other contractors looking to get involved. That, there's other forums, and then the IBCP that includes onshore wind as well. We have ASSP for safety professionals. There's lots of other forums for people to stay current and get involved.
So one of the things we've done over the past few years at Center for Offshore Safety is we've developed kind of what we refer to as our communities of practice or sharing industry knowledge pillar, where we have different subcommittees that they're not tasked with developing anything. They get together to discuss a topic, and they meet quarterly for a few hours, and they set their agenda. Here are the topics we're going to discuss. They get speakers that come in. So they're mini workshops almost, but here's our asset integrity group, and they get together, and it's the SMEs from our member companies. It's not our usual reps. It's the ones that actually do the asset integrity. We have our lifting, our process safety. And so it's truly a conversation. It's an opportunity for those SMEs to get together and have a talk, and not just the HSE reps. And people have said that that's truly brought value to their organizations. It's a chance for them to meet with their colleagues across industry. And so we're adding to it. We're starting an interface management subcommittee, which is just going to be about the relationship between operators and contractors and how and subs and how everyone's working together. So the industry has found, look, we're 100 years in oil and gas offshore, and we're still adding to it and learning and figuring out the best way to get people involved. So this is not something that only you are worrying about, right? Very well established industries are still trying to figure out how to get people in the room because you all have day jobs. And so finding the time to get involved, like you said, is so important. Having a voice at the table is truly the benefit of these organizations.
And also bounce off that too, your questions around as well, with those workers who want to have that feedback and say so input as well. But we challenge a lot of the developers to also to create YouTube channels for your companies, for your projects as well, to one, champion those great things you're all doing, two, to address things that you are hearing from your workers, from subcontractors in the industry, to be able to address those as well. That allows that comment section, that feedback to be there, but also even doing some sessions for your channels, the live sessions, just like this, but it's all virtual. So you're able to get people from different parts of the industry, whether they're tier one
or subcontractors or developers on the same page, because everyone can always travel to be where you may be holding it at, but if there's something scheduled, they know that they can regularly attend, and also have input and say so. I think that also opened up a lot of eyes as well, and get a lot of positive feedback also. But then also along with that, eventually those individuals who are wanting to do more will materialize. You can also bring them in to be able to help with the industry from that standpoint, but also making sure that those individuals be the champions for the industry to also bring in young talent or people who are interested in the industry as well to become part of those, getting more about it.
And maybe I'll just take a last stab at this question. I think I'm actually confident that G Plus is doing well to seek out that innovations and those opportunities to drive improvement from the voice of those supporting us. But I think probably where G Plus and others fumble a little bit is that communication feedback loop, driving awareness that like these sparks were delivered from this supplier, that supporting entity. They kind of help us have those aha moments and say, we should relook at our rigging strategies and our working at height strategies and the tools we're using. And we have these conversations within this G Plus forums and say, here's some good ideas that we were trying over at Equinor on our job site and share with others. But it probably wasn't, good chances it wasn't an idea that came from Equinor, it probably came from the suppliers and the supply chain that was delivering for us and opened our eyes. But I think there's really an opportunity there to possibly just provide that feedback that this is how this can be more than logical towards that. So you're a bit of a challenge. I see Dee in the background taking notes for Secretary, and I'm sure she'll bring into this in our next conversation. So appreciate you raising the question.
And one last thing is also to just make sure that workers are actually aware of association boards such as G Plus, as well as Oceanic and others who have those resources that are out there. Also, I think it's huge, it's key. That's going to get you more involved in communities, not just from the developer side, which is still with G Plus, but from the community side and the smaller businesses dealing with Oceanic. So.
Appreciate the question. Any others from the crowd or anybody online?
I don't need the microphone. What is something you guys have seen that you've all collaborated on that has come out of this? If you guys were all talking, you guys weren't getting very specific. Was there something like you said, like, hey, Jay collaborated with Justin and collaborated with Will and said, hey, this is something we need to do. Is that, can you guys give us an example of that, or is that all hush hush secret?
Confident we can come up with some good examples here and that. And again, just for online questions, examples of where we have collaborated amongst the various members to kind of drive support. Jay, you were quick on that.
Sure. I mean, we talked about this morning, there's different topics that you can see even on the G Plus website and the publications that we have, the good practice guidelines. You can see who is involved in those working groups. That's public information, so if you're curious about the work that G Plus does as an example, WINTA does quite a bit of work as well. In particular, I know we were all focused on emergency response, right? And we did that workshop within Good and Bedford, which was extremely valuable. So collaboration that way to get good practice out there for emergency response in the U.S. offshore wind. We've also seen that with just our safety management systems in general. There's a focus on electrical safety in the U.S. and compliance with that. We talk about things like LEDAC requirements offshore. And the list goes on and on. I'll let Rob and others take it from there. But emergency response, safety management systems, to name a few, is where I've seen a lot of value in collaborating with others directly with the working groups that we have here in this organization.
And Mike, I think that emergency response one is obviously pertinent to what your efforts, but also things like data collection and things where there's gaps where they really work and we're trying to find out, and incidents, like tracking that. And then another important thing is that we also try to make sure that we're not working on the same thing working against each other, right? Like if we put out a guidance document, you know, and G Plus puts out a guidance document, we don't want to have we don't want to have like have them go in separate ways. So we try to figure out like who has the best resources to do that, and then make sure we align, which I think is really important. I'm just going to make a plug here too. You know, I went to school here, like you know, since the early 2000s and stuff. And the idea, like we're in New England and we're in Rhode Island, and we have like G Plus and we have Oceanic coming. We have the offshore industry here, and we have some heavy hitting companies here. It's something that's kind of like crazy to me because when I left, you know, Rio or Houston, I thought I would never come back around. And now we have it here. So the weight of that and the ability to collaborate with Resolve and you know, with other local companies and you know, marine safety consultants, it's just a massive opportunity. So we all have to work together. And I'll just say, you know, me and I worked together for G Plus on going to new areas. So like I said, we went to Virginia and we went down there to make sure that we were engaging with the new, you know, the CEDA operations and instruction to make sure that we were like getting industry stakeholders, making sure that they understand the guidance that was available for our members. And you know, we're having another event here on March 4th in Newport, and I would welcome all the G Plus members and other stakeholders to come to visit with our website or reach out. And we collaborate on those events regularly.
I was just going to say to your point about not duplicating efforts, that's a huge point. And it's why I'm here, right? It's why I'm involved. It's why I talk to me and I see what G Plus is doing. We work with OUK. I sit on all of the ACP safety stuff because not only do we want to duplicate efforts, we don't want conflict. We don't want to develop conflicting documents. Because especially as you look at your contractor workforce, and one day they're working for you, one day they're working on an oil and gas project, one day they're working for a different operator. Not having conflicting guidance out there is so important. And I think it's up to the associations and the different organizations to really look at that. I feel like that's our responsibility, right? To really make sure that industry is not and spending time and money working in multiple organizations to create one document. Because I will tell you, working with some of the big producers, they don't know what the right hand is doing, right? You got someone from their oil and gas working on this topic with this organization, and someone from their wind department working on the same topic with another organization, and they have no idea that they're both working on the same topic. And so it kind of falls to the trade associations to make sure that we continue to talk to each other and make sure that resources, your resources, are being used wisely and in the right space.
And I just, one final kind of example I like to highlight, because I think it really was a telling one for me of the power this G Plus group has. And I want to point to the main failure incident that occurred. Historically, my own background, from oil and gas, I've been involved in incidents where, significant incidents where what happens with the communication flow from it and going out, the lawyers step in. And there is no communication. Everything just goes to a black hole, and you don't know anything for months. And this group, this G Plus network, there was far more candid, open engagement to understand what were the challenges being faced in that project, what were the strains that were having to be overcome. And I'm very appreciative. And I know absent this network within G Plus, I very well would have been, you know, just pulling pieces from the news like everybody else instead of kind of going straight to the horse's mouth and getting insight and being able to help develop my own strategy to support my company, as well as maybe even trying to give kind of advice that may or may not be heard in the language. But it's maybe a very strong example, on the part line of how G Plus and its membership can work together and support one another. Appreciate the question about that. Really ties into kind of this key and this collaboration, which was the intent of this panel here. So I don't believe any more questions, or no? All right. Well, let me thank all four of y'all for joining me up here on stage. We're doing a conversation. Good. So I'm going to hand it over to Bea here.
I would, before I kind of step off, I'd like to thank again the Oceanic group for kind of helping us do this tangentially and for giving us a sound look forward. And it's going to be a great couple of days ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, on the panels. I think just let us put together our hands together and thank our panelists. I think it raised great insight in looking back what we've achieved and also looking forward where we go. And I mean, we picked these topics and we were talking about this very end of last year. And I think it's been the right moment in time to have this reflection on what we've achieved in the recent years. And I think it's also the right time to see how we, in a positive sense, go as an industry stronger together. And I'm incredibly thankful for all the participation in the G+ groups. And I think also, especially, it was made the point, everybody has a day job. So we in the organization, Wendy and I, are feeling very much on the same page. It's our job to give the best value to your time, to use your experience, your knowledge in our companies, but also to make sure that you get the payback from your efforts you're paying. And that's why I think it's really great to hear how we cross the borders to come from this small little renewable bubbles working in silos to work across developers, also work across developers and OEMs and Tier 1 contractors within the G+. On the safety blanket, there is no competitiveness when it comes to safety, but also work across that renewables oil and gas side. Because I think there was also all the competition, or we can't share, we want to develop our industry on our own. And I think that's the next big step forward that we need to go together, as well as all the other associations. I'm really proud that we were able this year to do this in person and online, so hopefully we can do more of these events. And if you have innovative ideas how we can collaborate better, more with also the supply chain, because obviously many of the supply chains are not members of the G+, but nevertheless we would like to engage much more, we would like to get your feedback. Let us know. We have experience with workshops, with INCA, go in new regions, do lunch and learns. We have a great example for a project site to have a lunch and learn session to again use your busy times where you have a chance to ask questions, to provide feedback. So get engaged with the G+ Secretariat, because that's my day job to set this up to work with you. We have a little table outside if you're interested in more technical details. What are the projects, what are the topics we're working on, where do we produce and provide good practice guidance. You can find more information on the table. We are also with my colleague Olivia, we are around for the next 2 days. Please just get in touch, ask any questions. And yeah, hope you enjoy the event. I hope many of you stay for the Oceanic Summit. And thanks again for attending today.